Hi, this is Shannon from No Shelf Control. Thanks for joining me on my channel today. Today I'm going to be doing a Booktube newbie tag video. For those of you who don't know what that is, a newbie tag video is where a new booktuber like me gets a list of questions about their channel and answers them and puts them out on YouTube with the tag newbie, newbie booktube, those kinds of things, so that folks can find us through that hashtag and find new booktube channels that they might be interested in. So I have grabbed the Booktube newbie list of questions that was made available to me, and I'm going to take a few minutes and answer some questions about me and about my channel. So hopefully you will be able to get to know me a little bit. The first question is, why did you start this channel? I love talking about books. I had a blog for a while, but didn't keep up with it. And I recently started watching a booktuber called Savage Reads, Simon Savage. He's wonderful. I will put a link to his channel down below in case you want to check that out. But as I was watching Simon have his conversations about books and talk through his TBR and book hauls and do book prompts, I thought, you know, that looks like a lot of fun. And I could do that. So I decided to give it a shot. It was also sort of a New Year's Day thing. So while it isn't a New Year's resolution, it was a new year, new opportunity kind of thing that I decided to pursue. So that's why I decided to start this channel. The second question is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? I read really widely, so there's a lot of ground that I can cover. I read in a lot of genres. I read middle grade, YA, adult contemporary. I read sci-fi. I read fantasy, I read some fantasy, and have read romance, historical fiction. The only thing I will not read is horror. So I can tell you more about that sometime. Sometime I should do a video about the one horror book that made me really angry. I felt like I got tricked. So maybe I'll do a video sometime about that book and tell you that story. But I do not do horror. I do not like to be jumped at. I do not like loud noises. I don't like to be touched unexpectedly. And reading about gore for the sake of gore and just to be scared just does not appeal to me. So that is the only thing I will not read. But I think that wide reading for me is definitely something that I bring to Booktube. Also, I made some notes. Also, I don't just pan a book. So if there's a book I don't like, a lot of people won't talk about books that they don't like because they feel it's unfair to an author who did a lot of work to have somebody come on and just tear the book up. I don't do that. I will talk about the book and I will talk about what I don't like, but I will position it in such a way that I'm fully aware that just because I didn't like something doesn't mean that another reader won't just love it. So I tend to position things as, I didn't care for this part of the book, but if you like this, or you tend to be more like that, you might really love this. And I think that there is a home for every book. So just because there was part of a book that I didn't care for, I didn't like the ending, or I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the way it was written, doesn't mean that that won't appeal to you. So I will come on and talk about books that I don't like, but I do it in a way that identifies what it was I didn't like and how that might be something that would appeal to you. Let's see. What are you most excited for about this new channel? I love to hear from other readers. Every time I get another view or a like or somebody leaves a comment, I get excited. I get to hear from other people who are reading, who care about reading and books, and that's a lot of fun for me. So I like putting out there my opinions and my thoughts about the books, but I also like the idea that other people are taking in this information, hearing me, and giving me feedback. So that excites me about Booktube. Let's see, what else did I write down? It also feels really good to let people get to know me and to get to know them through their feedback. So I wouldn't discount that at all. I like anybody, I don't mind talking about myself. And I certainly love talking about books, but having that two-way dialogue, that opportunity to present something and then also get feedback from others is what I'm really looking forward to about this channel. Let's see. Why do you love reading? Well, this is a good one. So I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning new things. I love learning about different kinds of people, cultures, places, historical time periods, and books do that for me. So I am always, no matter whether I'm reading something very serious or something very light, I am always learning, and I love that. I soak up stuff like a sponge. I also like characters. I like getting to know different kinds of people and bonding with characters. So as characters become more familiar to me, or I start to feel for a given character, I love that feeling of actually connecting with someone in a book, through a book. And I also like to be seen. So when a writer can do a character or a story or a situation in such a way that it resonates with me, I love that. That's part of what I love about reading, is seeing myself reflected back through characters and situations and stories. Let's see. Question number 5. What book or series got you into reading? I would have to say that Little Women is the first book I really remember loving. I was a big Beth fan, so don't hold that against me if you were a big Jo fan. But I was a big Beth fan, and I remember reading this big honkin' book and just being engrossed. When I was a teenager, I got way into the Sweet Valley High series. I had an uncle who never knew what to buy me and always bought those for me for my birthday and for Christmas. But then, and this might be a little bit embarrassing, when I got to high school, I actually remember that the book that identified for me that I was a reader, that I was somebody who loved books, who couldn't wait to find the next book, who was, going after books full time. They were the books by Anne Rivers Siddons. The first one I remember is Peachtree Road. And that was in the 1990s, classic 1990s kind of stuff. And I don't really hear much about Anne Rivers Siddons anymore. You do hear about folks like Pat Conroy. He was sort of that same generation. But Anne Rivers Siddons' Peachtree Road. I had a high school teacher that loved that book and got me introduced to it. And I was just sucked in. I still love a good multi-generational saga. I love a family story. And Peachtree Road just spoke to me. And after that, it was on. I was in bookstores all the time, just constantly finding the next book that I was going to read. And I can see how that experience led all the way through to this today, as I started talking about books with other people and really, honing what it was that I liked about books. So the next question is, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? Well, the primary question I have is about getting viewership. I have posted links to my channel and specific videos everywhere I can think of, on Facebook, to all of my friends. I've told my colleagues about it. I've told the neighbors about it. And I'm still getting, 50, 60 views a video, which, don't get me wrong, I'm terribly excited about. But I don't know how to get it to take off. I don't know what it takes to go to the next level, to get it in the hands of people who don't know me, who have never heard of me. I'm pretty sure that my 22 subscribers are all people that I know personally, probably my mom 3 times. But my questions for other booktubers are all about viewership. How do I get out there? If I'm putting out content that I think is interesting and good and worthy of the community, how do I get it out there so that more folks start watching it and I get more opportunities to interact? So that would be my one big question for other booktubers. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I still think that's the viewership. I think that's the same answer for me. I don't know how to get this channel in the hands of people that I don't necessarily know well. It's getting out there little by little, and I'm sure that at some point it's going to take off. One of my videos is going to hit with someone, and I'll get more viewership, but I just don't know how to make that happen, and I think that's tricky. Question number 8. When did you start reading? Oh, this is good. I started reading very young. So I learned to read very young. I was the kind of kid that was smart and kind of a handful. And so my mom gave me a typewriter and a little desk and her old high school typing book. And I learned to type and to read on my own in a little part of our laundry room that was set up as my little office. So I learned to read really young. I also had my own little bookshelf out in the garage with all my books, and I was allowed to read anything that I wanted. My mom was a big Harlequin romance junkie, and so I got my hands on a lot of stuff that was probably inappropriate for me at that time, but I loved to read. And while my mom would be out in the backyard, she was a stay-at-home mom and loved to sunbathe. And so while she was out sunbathing, she would either read to me or I would get my books and read to myself. And so I was probably 4, 5 when I started reading. Or started reading all of my own books. And I've been reading ever since. So yeah, that's the story of how I started reading. Where do you read? That's an easy one. I read everywhere. So I have my books on the Kindle app on my phone. My phone is a bigger model, so I can see it very well. And I read on the Kindle app. Not exclusively, but all the time. So if I'm standing still anywhere, I'm reading. If I'm in line at the grocery store, if I'm waiting in the pickup line at school, whatever I'm doing, if there's a minute to myself, I'm probably reading. I also have books in all the bathrooms. Those are hard copy books. And then I have an audiobook going in my car. The 2 places that I love to read the most are my big recliner downstairs and in my bed. Now, I would love to have a book nook or a window seat or a hammock installed in my house where I could cuddle up with lots of pillows. Pillows are key to this, and read to my heart's delight. But I don't have that today. So today, my 2 favorite places to read are the big recliner and my bed. Let's see, I think we have 2 more. What kind of books do you like to read? I think we've already talked about this some. I'm a sucker for new, hot contemporary fiction, but I will try almost anything. As I said, horror is off the list, not gonna happen. And the more I think about it, the more I do need to make that video about the horror book that suckered me in and made me angry. Let's see. Psychological thrillers though. So while horror is off the table for me, a psychological thriller I can do. Something that makes me think. It can creep me out. It can even get stuck in my head and bother me a little bit. But horror, for the sake of horror, I just don't do. Anything else is fair game. Let's see. Last question. What does your book collection look like? Now that's a funny one. I have books everywhere. It is a complete disaster. Every room in the house has books in it. They are stacked 2 and 3 deep. There is no organization to it. I have ADHD and a very good visual memory. And if things aren't out where I can see them, it's like they're invisible. So you would be amazed how easily I go and find a book when, if you ask me, do you have There by Tommy Orange? Yeah, and I can go get it. But there's no rhyme or reason to how my books are organized. And anybody else from the outside looking in would think I was absolutely insane. But I managed to find them and enjoy them. And I am drowning in them, which I greatly appreciate. So thank you so much for listening to me talk a little bit about me tonight. I know that I didn't provide any book recommendations this evening, but there will be more of those to come. And I really look forward to talking more to you and getting my newbie tag video out there so that hopefully some folks can find a new Booktube channel that they will grow to love. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.